Somewhere in this desert, there are answers. Answers to where Nancy Guthrie is. Answers to what happened to her. Answers that her family has been waiting on for 131 days. And right now, those answers might be buried in the ground. Literally. Let's start at the beginning. Because if you're new here, you need to understand who Nancy Guthrie is before any of this makes sense. Nancy is 84 years old. She lived alone in Tucson, Arizona. Sharp woman, independent. The kind of person who didn't need a lot of looking after. She'd built a quiet life, a good one, and by every account she was doing just fine on her own. And then one night, that changed. Surveillance footage captured a man breaking into her home, not picking a lock, not sneaking, breaking in. The footage circulated everywhere. It went national almost immediately. And Nancy, this 84-year-old woman, was gone. No note, no call, no trace. What followed was the kind of media coverage that doesn't happen very often. Tens of thousands of tips. A joint task force between the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI. Investigators from multiple jurisdictions. The full weight of American true crime attention pointed directly at this case, and then nothing. No arrest, no body, no resolution, just silence. Until now. Okay, so here's something most people don't think about when they think about this case. Tucson, Arizona, where Nancy was taken from, is about 70 miles from the US-Mexico border, specifically the crossing at Nogales. 70 miles. That's it. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. 70 miles international border, that's not nothing. Crossing into Mexico isn't easy, right? Actually, at Nogales, it kind of is. A journalist from News Nation, Brian Anton, crossed over into the Mexican side one day just to see what it was like. He walked across. He talked to people. He came back, filed his evening report the same day. No drama. No checkpoint nightmare, just across and back. And when you understand that, a question starts to form. A question that, honestly, should have been asked louder and sooner. If crossing that border is that easy, could whoever took Nancy Guthrie have done exactly that? Could he have driven south? Could she be buried somewhere in the Mexican desert, just past an invisible line, in territory that American search teams apparently never seriously considered? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. From the very early days of this investigation, the communication between American authorities and their Mexican counterparts was, to put it generously, a mess. The FBI would say one thing. Arizona officials would say something slightly different. Nobody seemed to be on the same page. And there was no clear, visible, joint operation happening south of that border. That's still the case today. But something else has changed. Day 131. And a tip comes in. Not to the FBI, not to the task force, not to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The tip comes to a volunteer organization in Nogales, Mexico. Their name is Buscando Corazones Nogales, in English, Searching for Hearts, Nogales. They are, largely, a group of mothers. Women who know what it means to lose someone and not know where they went. Women who got tired of waiting for answers that weren't coming and decided to go find them themselves. And over time, they got good at it. Really good. In one area alone, a place called Mariposa, which means butterfly in English, located southwest of Nogales, this group has previously found 25 unmarked graves. 25. Think about that number for a second. 25 people buried without markers, without ceremony, without acknowledgement. 25 families who may have been waiting for exactly the kind of call that Buscando Corazones was able to make. This is not a stretch of open desert that nobody knows about. This is a documented site. A place with a history, a place where, apparently, someone, or multiple someones, felt comfortable enough to return again and again. That's where the tip pointed. And the tip wasn't vague. That's the part that matters. It wasn't someone calling in a feeling or a hunch. According to the group, the tip contained specific details. Details specific enough to take seriously. Details specific enough to act on. So Buscando Corazones mobilized. And they didn't go alone. They had the backing of the Sonora State Commission for the Search of Missing Persons. That's a government body, not a community group, not a nonprofit, an official state institution. And alongside that, municipal and state officials provided security forces to protect the searchers on the ground, armed security. Now, I want to sit with that for a moment, because when a search operation requires armed personnel to keep volunteers safe, that tells you something about where they're going. This is territory with a history of violence. An area where 25 people were already buried without names. Going in there to dig around is not a neutral act. There are people who would prefer that ground stayed undisturbed. And these women went anyway. They searched. They worked the area. They followed the tip. And on this first pass, they did not find Nancy Guthrie. But here's the thing. The head of the organization, Ramona Guadalupe Ayala Ortiz, has been clear. They are not done. They are going back. The search continues. This is not a one-day effort that fizzled out. This is an active, ongoing operation with government support, with security, with a specific tip still on the table. It's just not being run by the United States. Which brings me to the part of this story that I keep coming back to. Where are the Americans? Because think about what we have here. A credible tip, detailed enough to move an entire state commission into action. A search area 70 miles from where Nancy was taken. A crossing so easy a TV journalist did it as a day trip. An experienced organization with a documented track record. Mexican government backing. So what does the Pima County Sheriff's Department have to say about all of this? Here's their official statement, posted publicly on X. We are aware of reports regarding an anonymous tip related to the Nancy Guthrie investigation that was provided to a group in Mexico. At this time, we have not been contacted by Mexican authorities. This investigation remains active and ongoing, and we will continue to follow up on any credible information. That's it. We have not been contacted by Mexican authorities. No mention of reaching out themselves. No representative sent. No cadaver dogs on a plane to Nogales. No joint statement. No acknowledgement that the Mexican government found this credible enough to back with actual resources. Just, they didn't call us. And I have to be honest with you. That sentence is doing a lot of work. Because if someone doesn't call you, and the situation is important enough, you pick up the phone. That's not complicated. That's not controversial. That's just what you do when a woman has been missing for 131 days and someone on the other side of a nearby border is actively searching a specific location based on a specific tip. You call. The word credible in that statement is also worth noticing. They'll follow up on credible information, which raises the obvious question. Is the implication that this isn't credible? Because the Sonora state government thought it was credible. Municipal officials thought it was credible enough to send armed security. An experienced organization that has found 25 graves in this very area thought it was credible. I'm just asking. Now, I want to talk about what 131 days actually means for a case like this. Because a lot of people have been reaching out asking, is this over? Is the trail cold? Is there still any real hope here? And the answer is more complicated than you might expect. In the very beginning of a disappearance, time is the enemy. Evidence degrades, memories fade, witnesses stop paying attention. The urgency that makes people come forward in week 1 is mostly gone by month 4. That part is true. But here's what's also true. As time passes, people start to talk. In the immediate aftermath of a violent crime, especially one with any connection to organized criminal networks, silence is survival. If you know something, saying something could get you killed. That's not paranoia. That's the reality of how these networks operate. But 131 days is a long time. People move, alliances fracture. Someone who was loyal 6 months ago may have very good reasons to not be loyal today. Someone facing their own prison sentence for something unrelated starts doing math. And the math often looks like, what do I know that someone else wants to know? There's a saying in this world, the first person who talks usually gets the best deal. So if there are people out there who know something, and statistically, in a crime like this, there almost certainly are, the calculus for them is shifting. Every day that passes is another day that their loyalty to whoever did this is tested against their own self-interest. And there's another layer to this. Whoever took Nancy Guthrie, if they're still free, has had 131 days to breathe, to relax, to start to feel like they got away with it. And people who feel like they got away with something get careless. They say things they shouldn't. They trust people they shouldn't. They drop details in places they didn't mean to. That's when cases crack open. So no, I don't think this is over. Not even close. I want to take a moment to actually talk about Buscando Corazones because I don't think this organization is getting the credit it deserves in coverage of this story. These are volunteers, mostly mothers, women who, in many cases, have their own missing loved ones. Women who got organized not because someone asked them to, but because the alternative, waiting and getting nothing, was unbearable. Mexico has one of the highest rates of missing persons in the world. Tens of thousands of people, disproportionately women and young people, have disappeared in recent decades. Many of them victims of cartel violence, human trafficking, organized crime, and the official response in many regions has been deeply inadequate. So these women built something themselves. They learned, they developed methods. They went into dangerous territory, the kind of territory that requires armed escorts, and they found people, or at least they found where people ended up. 25 unmarked graves in one area. That is not luck. That is skill, persistence, and an enormous amount of courage. When this organization says they received a credible tip and are acting on it, that means something. When they say they're going back, that means something. And for whatever it's worth, in this case, on this day, they are doing more visible, active work to find Nancy Guthrie than the agencies that have official jurisdiction over her disappearance. So where does this leave us? The search at Mariposa is ongoing. No results yet from the first pass, but the organization has committed to continuing. They have backing. They have support. They have a specific tip. The reward for information leading to Nancy's location is still in place. And reward money, whatever its complications, it genuinely changes the calculation for people sitting on information, especially as time passes and the fear of whoever did this starts to fade. And this case still has oxygen. It's quieter than it was at its peak, sure, but it has not gone cold. The story is still alive. And now, with an active international search operation, with Mexican government backing, with renewed press coverage, there's momentum again. That matters. Tips follow attention. Witnesses come forward when a story is back in the news. Cases break in unexpected ways. A forensic hit. A body found somewhere no one expected. A co-conspirator who finally talks. A completely random person who heard something months ago and only just connected the dots. It happens. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She was taken from her own home by someone who had no right to touch her, let alone take her. Her family has been waiting for 131 days, not for process updates or jurisdictional explanations, just where is she? And right now, the people closest to answering that question are a group of volunteer mothers in Nogales, Mexico, walking through a desert with armed escorters, following a tip that nobody in America apparently knew about until this week. If that doesn't tell you something about the gap between the investigation that's happening and the investigation that needs to happen, I don't know what does. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie, anything at all, no matter how small, please contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The tip line is active, the reward is real, and somewhere, a family is waiting for a phone to ring. I'll update this as things develop. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, because when this case moves, it tends to move fast. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep asking questions.